What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Track Talk. I'm your host, Dominique Smith. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about today. Not going to be too long, maybe a half an hour, just a hair over. But this past weekend, some incredible stuff went down. Some weird stuff went down, specifically talking about the meet up in Jacksonville. I live in Florida. I've seen some crazy meets. And I've said Florida is the most bipolar state where weather is concerned, and it kind of showed itself a little bit up in Jacksonville, but there's still some stuff to cover there. We're going to talk about a high schooler who went off in the 800, breaking the 800 high school record. Miss Juliette Whittaker killed it. Was really excited to see that record go down. And we're going to talk about a new Jamaican potential superstar in the sprint. I'm telling you, there's a lot to come in this episode. So without further ado, let's get started. Should be a fun one. So let's start with the elephant in the room. And that is what happened this past weekend up in Jacksonville. There's just so much that I could say. I'm not in the business of being overly critical, but some of the stuff, it's just it seemed like they didn't have an emergency plan unless, if the weather, busted loose, which it did.
Tragic.
The rain stretched from Jacksonville to Central Florida, and it was crazy. It's never ideal to run in a downpour. And I honestly thought that meet was going to get canceled. We saw ShaCarri Richardson take the track for the first time this year. She ran a relay earlier, but as far as her individual events, this was the first race of the season for her. Ended up running twice, from what I understand, and if I'm wrong, I have to double check that, but from what I understand, she ran once, and then heat 5, I guess the clock was wrong or something like that. Something was off, and they made them run again. Well, she came back with the same, group in heat 5, which has some talent in it. Had a lot of talent in it, not some talent. There could be a couple of women who make the U.S. team in 100 out of that group, and we'll get to that in another show. But her first time was 11:37. Her second time was 11:27, and she took the win the second time around, running 11:27 in a tight-knit race. Very tight-knit race. She didn't have a great start, and so far her start is not, is not great. It's not anything to write home about, but she gets it done, and she has a style in which she races, and that second half of the race is where she comes alive and where she separates from people, and she's never out of the race, it seems. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of people are disappointed. 11:27. Now, let me say this. Some of the comments I feel are justified, meaning, oh my gosh, 11:27, like that's slow. Well, let me say this, that's not slow. For a season opener in the rain, that's not slow. But I understand. And so maybe justified was not the right word. So let me backtrack. I understand some of the comments that are being made, not justifying them, but I understand it. Justified was the wrong word. But I do understand it because when Justin Gatlin comes, on a show and says, yeah, she's running 10-3 in practice. We had Colin Waitsman on last week. He said something that I couldn't agree with him more. I don't care what you did in practice. I don't care. Practice does not count because nobody can see it. You're not using, I don't know if they went to, the time management services. We have a few here in Florida, Elite Timing. I think it's Halftime. I forgot what the other one is called, but unless like they came out and they set it up where you could run an accurate 100. For all we know, that 10.3 could have been 75 meters. So I'm not buying that. That was just for the media. That's just for talking heads, to get on shows and be like, oh yeah, and it hyped it up even more. And so everybody was, or at least a decent amount of people, it seemed, were expecting sub 11, because you're saying, okay, she's running 10.3, so she's running the world record in practice. Well, you don't know if that's win aided. You don't know. There's so many questions, but people took that and ran with it. And so there have been some harsh reactions, saying she's not going to make the U.S. team. She's not going to, get any faster. She can't get it together. Now she does run, you know, this week at the Prefontaine Classic. That's a loaded field, including Elaine Thompson. So we're going to see a lot in that meet. We're going to see a lot. But I don't think it's that big of a deal, man. Like, I know everybody's tripping and all that stuff. I just don't see it to be, it's your first race in not ideal conditions. ShaCarri may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I have seen, I think I alluded to it a while back. I remember Wade Van Niekerk. He ran an open 400. This was years ago before he got hurt. Oh boy, what was his time? It wasn't anything to write home about. It was like 46, and it was in March or whatever the case might be. Wade Niekerk is the fastest 400-meter runner ever. And Wade, I hope you get healthy, man. I want to see you, be back to the form in which you were when you broke the world record, because I would love to see a meet with, Michael Cherry, Michael Norman. We'll see if Fred Curley ever gets back into the 400, because I think he can make a dent in that time. And then you put Van Niekerk, you put Stephen Gardner. Listen, that could be epic. So I really do hope that he gets back to full form. But back to ShaCarri, I just don't see it to be a big deal. I just don't. Now, I will say this. I think Pre's going to be telling from a competitive standpoint. Now, I went to the Prefontaine Classic last year. I'm not going to be there this year. I, got credentialed to be a part of the virtual media team. So, maybe I can get some, quotes and ask her a question or two. Not sure. So don't, I'll say don't count on that. But I remember last year, we talked about it on the show previously. She ran like 11:03, but she got dusted. That was the same race where Elaine Thompson ran 10:54, and that was just an insane field. And this is going to be an insane field. So for me, looking at her as a competitor, I think she believes she can beat all these women, and that's what you have to have. You have to have just a tough, gritty mentality. Not a cocky mentality. Because listen, 100 meters, there's not a lot of room for error. Let's just call it spade. There's not a lot of room for error. And so, yeah, you have to have that confidence that you can beat them. But for me, now you've run 11:27. You got to win under your belt. You got to take that next step. To everybody saying she's not going to be on Team USA unless she gets in some kind of trouble or whatever, then she's going to be on the team. Let's just cut that argument. I do believe she's going to be on the team. Now, the other two, that is, we will have that conversation at some point as who we think will be the other two, because it's wide open to me. I personally, I said it last week, I think Tiana Daniels. One person we're not talking about is Mary Beth Price, or St. Price, forgive me, but I think that she's going to be on the team, because there is still some time until, we get to Eugene for the U.S. championships. So I don't think it's a big deal, but I will say this. I think if she struggles, I don't know what her schedule is leading up to USA's, But I think this week, if you don't see improvement, then I think that's a cause for concern because time is winding down. We still got a few weeks, but the opportunities, are closing in. And so, like her hater, she brings eyes to the sport because of her personality. Now, while I think she'll make the team, do I think she is the one to compete with the Jamaicans? It remains to be seen. It remains to be seen. Jamaica has a strong core with Elaine Thompson, who I will say this. She was supposed to run in Birmingham, but she stayed at home in Jamaica, ran a great time of 10:92. And so my own question is like, what happened? Because I thought she wasn't going to be able to run at all. Is it just a matter of she wasn't trying to travel, that far of a distance, especially, with the bigger meet next week and maybe the conditions, in Europe. I know it was colder in Europe, which is if they could bring some of that weather to Florida, I ain't complaining about it because it's too hot here. But I don't know. I was surprised to see her run this past weekend. But that's neither here nor there. And so we'll have plenty of conversations about that, whether I think that she can challenge the Jamaican, women, or if there is someone who can challenge them. Because right now, I said it. Well, the episode got deleted, but I did pick Shelly Ann Fraser-Price to win gold at Eugene. Still do not think the world record is going to be broken, but it's going to be a fun one. So, ShaCarri, like I said, I understand the criticism because of the expectation that was set on by Gatlin, saying that she ran 10:3. But I got to see it because, listen, you can do anything you want to in practice, but, it's a different story. It's a different environment. It's a different mindset when it comes to racing. So we'll see how she fares. But for me personally, I would want to see improvement, especially headed into pre. On home soil, should be better weather. I would hope there's no rain, or whatever the case might be. Maybe a little cool, but I would hope to see. It's going to be a fun matchup. Elaine versus ShaCarri. Elaine versus ShaCarri. Drop in the comments who you got, because I would be interested to see everybody's opinion on that. But yeah, I would hope to see, just some improvement week to week headed into USA's. But speaking of Jamaica, they have a superstar, potentially. Oblique Seville. And I hope I'm saying that right. I think I am. Oblique Seville. I watched that race down in Jamaica. I think it was Kamar Bailey Cole who got DQ'd. And this kid is, if he can develop, I thought the next Jamaican superstar was going to be Francis, the 400-meter runner. But this kid is legit. Like, I watched him run 986. Oh, no, you didn't. This young kid, I think he's 20, something like 20, 986. I watched that race. He slowed down at the end of that race, but his form, he looked smooth, he looked relaxed, and then he said he didn't execute to the best of his ability. Let me tell you something. Jamaica, if you can develop this dude properly, I'm not saying he's the next Bolt. All I'm saying is we can't be just considering what Team USA has to offer, and then Lamont Jacobs, who is not running, found out he has an injury, so he's out 10 days. So we'll leave that alone. Definitely hope he gets better and can get back to full form. But if this dude is running 986, and he can show it that it's consistent. Now, let me say something. Now that Lamont Jacobs is out, I haven't checked. I guess I need to double check to see, to make sure he is running. I would love to see him, and that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to triple check. I would love to see him in that field. Sincerely, I would. I I think that would be interesting. I think that would be interesting. And I'm double checking to make sure, because I have it up on my computer and everything, but obviously I'm recording this, at the moment. But let's see. Yeah, it would be epic to see him with that talent. Here we go. Let's go to list and results. We're going to go to the men's 100 meters, which is the last event. And it's not letting me pull it up. That's okay. That's all good. But yeah, that kid is a real, to me, and I know it's just one race, but I think that kid could be, there's something about him that just says, like, this is the next dude. Usain Bolt, I'm not comparing him to Usain Bolt. I'm not comparing him to Johan Blake, but 986 jogging at the end is impressive. And that makes the men's 100 even more entertaining, because now if this kid can prove that he can be consistent in what he just did, where does Jamaica fall into this? Where could he fall in the medal? Just think about it right now. So we're looking at the men's 100. We're assuming my pick to win the 100 in Eugene, to make the team and then win the 100 is Trayvon Bromell, because I think he's on home soil, and I just think it's just his time. But you got Lamont Jacobs, you got Fred Curley. I think Noah Lyles, if he throws him and Knighton, if they can, Knighton's never broken 10, but I think he will break 10 at pre. But we'll see what he can do in 100. Andre DeGrasse, this kid, and I know I'm missing some other people. Man, I would, and part of me, I love USA. I love to see us on top. Obviously, hey, got the Olympic gear on. But I think this kid makes it interesting. Not necessarily, I say this from the standpoint of not having a dog in the fight, but the sprints were fun when Jamaica was active in it, with Usain Bolt, with Johan Blake, with the Safa Powell and guys like that. It's fun when they're, clicking, and it gives more incentive. Now it's fun right now that the USA is just balling. And then obviously you throw Jacobs into the, to the fold. But I think it would be fun to see him mix, because it's going to push guys to greater times. Now, I'm not on this world record talk about, X, Y, and Z is going to break the world record. I don't see that going down. Nobody has shown me anything for me to say the world record is going to be broken. You can't, at least not this year. Somebody has to break the American record first, unless somebody blows up out of nowhere, and then, and the guy I'm watching, to be honest with you, is Knighton, because of how he's running the 200 and the fact that he's learning more about the sport. He's starting to grow. He's starting to develop, and he could be somebody that burst onto the scene, man, and just, bust hell wide open. But this kid, I think he has potential, and I think Jamaican fans should be really excited about him, because I actually, for whatever reason, and we see it all the time. We see somebody pop out a fast time and then they kind of fade into the sunset, so to speak. And you don't really hear too much about them, or they're not as active, they're not as good, or whatever the case might be, or they can't replicate it and be consistent in that time. But there's something about this kid that I think is going to be different. I don't see him right now running 9.58. I'm not saying he's the next Usain Bolt. I've said that like 10 times in the past 5 minutes. But there's something about this kid that seems different, and how he ran that race. He got out fast. He had a good start, but he was in control of the race. He said that he didn't execute on all cylinders like he wanted to, which is fine. That happened. But there was something about this dude. There was something about this dude. And to me, it's like, are we watching a star, a Jamaican sprinting star being born? And I think it's better for the sport if he can continue on that trajectory into greatness. Um, and so I hope that he can continue to keep that same, energy, and can continue to be consistent, because I do think it's gonna be big for the sport if he is. Another thing that really amazed me over the past weekend, Juliette Whittaker broke 2 minutes in the 800, set the high school national record. And a big shout out to her, because that is an Allison Wade of, and I want to correct myself, Elaine Thompson Hare ran 10.94, but it was into a headwind. But yeah, she broke a tough record. Allison Wade, like I was saying, put it in perspective. That's from a statistical standpoint. Um, that was a tough record. She ran 159.80 to take the win up in New York. I think it was the sound running. I think it was sound running. But man, big shout out to her. She's committed to Stanford. And so I just wanted to highlight that, because it needs to get more attention. It needs to get proper attention. The things that these kids are doing in high school, it's just ridiculous, man. I just saw a Texas high school football player, run 10-1 in the 100. And the times are starting to drop, because the athletic ability and the God-given skill set is starting to rise, and it's fun to see. I think she's going to be a legend for a long time. Like I said, she's going up to Stanford with believe Coach J.J. Clark. And I know that, first of all, let me just say that Stanford has a stupidly ridiculous recruiting class, man. It is insane. And I'm really excited to, see what they do, what they can produce. And so I definitely wanted to give her a shout out. It was a tough record to break, but she earned it. She ran an incredible race in the rain. So, one could say, hey, what happens if it's on, dry land? How fast could she have gone? But definitely wanted to give credit where credit was due on that front. I was thinking, headed into the Prefontaine Classic, there's so many incredible races, and we'll stick to the sprints this week. But one thing, talked about the women's 100, talked about the men's 100. There's a race that I'm interested in, and it is the men's 400. The men's 400. I think it's safe to say that Stephen Gardner should be the presumed favorite, especially for his success going in. But there's two guys that stand out to me that I am really keeping my eye on, because I definitely think they're gonna. I believe one guy. I have to go back and check if he's already on the team for winning the Diamond League. I think he is, and that's Michael Norman. But Michael Cherry, man, Michael Cherry doesn't get talked about enough. Michael Cherry has consistently improved you know, year after year. And he is one, like, it wouldn't shock me if I don't know if he'll win gold, but for sure getting on the medal stand, man. Like, I don't think that should come as a complete shock to anybody, because consistency is hard at track and field. That's one thing that I don't think people understand. Being consistent is so difficult. Um, and the fact that he's able to do it obviously consistently, but it just seems like he's improving and improving and improving. And he's hilarious on Twitter. Please go follow him. He's one that I'm definitely curious about. And Karani James, that's going to be a fun field too. Karani James is in this field. Norman Cherry, there's just a bunch of incredible runners. I believe Vernon Norwood's in this field. But Michael Cherry is one that I don't feel like we talk about enough, because I think he has to make up the makeup. He reminds me a little bit, and I'm not even going to make that comparison, but Michael Cherry is one that I really do think, I think he could win that race, but I also think that when it comes to the grand stage, I think he's somebody that we're not talking about enough. And I think he can make some noise on the world stage. I think, obviously, you've seen what he could do on the relay, but I think this is his time to take that next step. He's one athlete that I really feel is ready to take that next step into greatness. I look at the women's 800. Keely Hodgson. Oh God, if I messed the name up, please forgive her, brother. Please forgive me. Her versus the Thing Mo, man. I think I'm of the mindset that the Thing Mo is unbeatable. I just probably wrong, but I do like. But if there is somebody to beat her, the part of me still believes AJ Wilson. Like, yeah, I mean, I do think that she still has a lot to offer in the sport, and I think it's going to be a big year for her. God, the women's 800, man, that race, and we will do a show probably next week about that. That race is loaded. That race is just crazy, man. And so, but I'm interested to see, that matchup. Because Thing Mo, I think easily, let me not say it easily, because I don't even know if that double is still possible. It would depend on the schedule. I would love to see her try the 4 and the 8. That's a different kind of toughness. But I think she could win. If she said, you know what, I want to concentrate on the 400 this year. I know about, then there is some talented 400-meter runners. Women in the women's race, there's some talented 400-meter runners. I think that she could win. I really do. I think she can win gold in the 400. She's just that versatile. You talk about, some of the most versatile athletes in track and field. You're talking about, specifically on the women's side, looking at like an Allison Felix, who could, stretch from the 100 to the 400. You're looking at, Sydney McLaughlin, who obviously just got married. So congratulations to Sydney. But I think if Sid concentrated, that she can make a push for the open 400 title. In addition to the hurdles, she could probably run some other stuff too. And so that's just, like I said, and at this point, it's just random talk, how we do on the show. And we're about to wrap it up here shortly. But yeah, that's just something that I'm curious to watch as well. And I hope it's a great meet on this channel. I hope to bring you guys some content. Going to request to interview a few athletes, and I just hope everybody stays safe and enjoys the meet. Wrapping up here, to everybody who competed in the state championships or respective state championships, I hope you guys balled out and stayed safe. Whether obviously here in Florida we're done, and NCAAs definitely hope those athletes stay safe because there's a lot going on with Division 3, Division 2, and obviously Division 1. Um, there's I'm interested to see if the Texas women can how do I say this? If they can keep up that momentum in this regional sector. Because that what they're able to do has been impressive. And I think I'm looking at the SEC. Abby Steiner. I'm curious to see what she can do. And obviously, LSU for 4 and on Hall and Hall, up in Florida, Kyle Garland, in Georgia in the the decathlon. I'm really interested to see what some of these athletes can do. And I'm interested to see, especially Hall, because if I'm not mistaken, she is, in addition to doing the heptathlon, I want to say they entered her in the 400 hurdles as well, which is just like, but hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do to win the team championship, man. You got to put the team on your back. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing, what some of these athletes can do. And I'm actually curious. There's been a lot of scratches, some big name scratches in certain events. Forgive me for drinking too much Propel. Shout out to the Propel. Got to stay hydrated. And I guess I'm not sure if it's due to injury or what the case might be, but I think it's an opportunity for some people to step up and make a name for themselves. And I'm just curious to watch it all. It's going to be a fun weekend in track, man. Like, I'm just telling you, I'm excited for it. Like, literally, if it's starting tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. And just looking at my notes here, just kind of, looking through everything, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. It's something that I feel like everybody should pay attention to because, man, there's just so much going down. And kind of going back to looking at this women's 100-meter, you got Tonisha Terry, got Tiana Daniels, Brianna Williams, you got Mujinga. She's a Swiss runner, so forgive me. Don't want to disrespect you like that. Wow. This is a crazy field. Sharika Jackson, Dina Asher Smith, man. And the women's 200, Shelly Ann Fraser Price. You got Shawnee Miller-Weibo, Jenna Prandini, Cambria Sturgis, Desiree Bryant. Listen, this is a track dream. Not even talking about the 1500 with Robbie Andrews. You got the youngster Drew Hunter. You got Hobbs Kessler, and crazy. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Just looking to make sure I didn't forget anything. I think I've covered everything that I aim to on the show. Obviously got the notes here, just triple checking everything like that. And then just want to, Cherokee Young. The Caribbean's doing some great things in this 400. Cherokee Young of Jamaica, 49.87. Paula Dino, I believe, she's run 49.49. She ran that. Wow. These are I'm just going over some of the times that I've looked at in terms of the Caribbean women who've run the 400. But we're just going random there. And then another guy I got to give a shout out to. There's a lot. You know, you got Hansel Parchment in the 100 hurdles, who, listen, he's dark horse. Got to give a shout out to Rudy Winkler in the Throws Festival. Got to give a shout out to the homie Kara Winger. This is her last season, and she made a pretty big announcement. Switching coaches and everything, and so we just got to give a shout out to her. Got to give a shout out to all the throwers. Valerie Allman putting the team on her back in the discus. Wanted to make sure I did that. And so that's enough blab for me, but I appreciate you guys watching this episode of Track Talk. Hope you enjoy every single aspect of the meet this week. It's going to be fun. Be sure to follow me at @DomSmith_news on Twitter and Lactic Acid Podcast on Instagram. And be sure to like and subscribe for the latest episodes. Trust me, as the weeks go on, you're going to get more content. We're going to be bringing some awesome people on Track Talk. You're going to love it. Until next time, peace.